Hello, welcome to the Asheville Design District podcast. I'm your host, Shawndra Russell, and today I am joined by special guest Julie Walther, who is the powerhouse behind Women in Trades. So Julie, share with us what your vision was for Women in Trades and why you are serving the community in this way.
Sure. So thank you for having me.
Yes, of course.
So the Women in Trades Hub started with a meetup, and I moved here from Chicago, Illinois. At that point, I was doing property management, and I have another side hustle that's stagehands clothing, all black industrial workwear. And so I wanted to meet women in the trades to see if there was an audience for these industrial workwear and we prioritized the women. So with a couple friends, we started talking about what if we gathered for a beer, and we did, and it just grew. And every meeting we've had more and more women show up. It's a range of trades from the very traditional pipe fitters, plumbers, contractors, but we've also had some agriculture folks come, woodworkers, a wide range. Yeah. So we're not arguing what is a trade. We say these are women who are working in male-dominated arenas and high-paying jobs.
Yeah.
And so the whole goal of this meetup is to pass business to each other, help the women who own the businesses flourish, hire women into these industries. And so it started there.
Yeah.
So I'll leave it there for
now. Well, I was lucky to join a few months after you had started, and the energy at these events is incredible because it's a lot of hardworking women out there on the, in the field, slinging their hammers, doing the work, and they get to come to community together. And it's just this crackling, wonderful energy. And it's really, really special. So what do you attribute to that and this special sauce that you've created?
I think women gather in a very different way. And I think we can be very open to each other and support each other in a very different way. I'm not a man, so I don't know what the boys' clubs are like. So I say it's a different way, but it's the only way I know. But by creating this space where they can let down their guard, they can ask hard questions, they can practice their skills. I find it interesting. We really try to keep it very intergenerational. So we have people who are retired from the trades, but people who are brand new, the 20-somethings who are coming in. And I find this beautiful sweet spot where the folks who have been in the industry for a while are able to push or challenge or mentor the younger women to take up space, to use their voices, to practice, asking hard questions. And the younger people push us to do different on social media, to bring in topics that are more relevant. But I do feel like the space is very supportive and intentional.
So I love that you brought up the intergenerational piece because that's something that struck me as different than a lot of the groups I go to. And I think it's so important that we give older women their voices back and feeling like they have purpose and sharing their amazing wisdom. I mean, that's a big piece, I think, of this kind of pipeline that you like to talk about in this is just because you're retired doesn't mean all these young women wouldn't want to learn from you. And maybe you can mentor them. Maybe you can talk to them about business. Maybe you can teach them a new trade that didn't even know existed, right?
Right. And it's already happening. So, there's a handy woman company that had some young staffers or team members and a plumber who's retiring. And she worked with the young staff to help them learn how to, I don't know what they were doing, but changing a toilet out or, doing whatever it was. But they met through this group. And so there was this teaching that's taking place. And, people who are skilled and have been around a while have a lot to share, and the young people who are coming up have a lot to learn. And that sounded really judgy. That's not what I mean. They're all craftspeople, but
well, and
I do like the mix.
And think about what they've been through. If we're talking, people that are at retirement age, they were in the boys' clubs when there
Only.
were, they were one of the only, I mean,
Yeah.
I've heard stories from some of the women in trades of being the only woman on site, or somebody wanting them to do a wet t-shirt contest in the,
Right.
at lunch because they were the only woman on
Right.
site. So they've been through the trenches.
Yes.
Like they kind of have helped pave the way for more women just by surely being there in the beginning. And now we're really fostering this idea of, why is there only 10% women in construction? These high paying jobs, these great jobs. So talk a little bit about how you're evolving to helping more women get in the trades and that piece, because
Sure.
I know that we both share that passion.
So we met through the meetup.
Yep.
And I think creating space for women to strengthen all of themselves is important for both of us.
Right.
And I think this meetup has created this space for the women to come together. A year in, they wanted more. And the more I talked to people, the more I was listening about little things like, they're all artists. They're on the job doing their work, their craft. And then they can't pick up their phone. They're on a ladder. They can't answer it, schedule an appointment. They come home at the end of the day. They've worked a full day, and then they still have to write emails, do invoicing, client cultivation.
The biz.
Yes, running the business. And so that's where the Women in Trades Hub has evolved as a starting point, is to begin to help back office support for these women-owned trades companies. Bookkeeping, social media, answering phones, that kind of thing. The third component, so convening the meetups, the trainings that you do, is one piece. The back office support is another piece. And then the third pillar is around the pipeline. So how do we create pathways for women to gain the skills, get the jobs, keep the jobs, and then within those companies that are hiring these women, are they female friendly?
Right.
Have they been trained to be a safe place for a woman to work? Because it's not going to do us a whole lot of good if we are training a whole bunch of women and then put them in really unsafe environments. So it's very much a culture shift. We talk a lot about disrupting the way things have been done and being unapologetically pro-women. And we're trying to figure out now, how do we make this all happen?
Right.
So there's partners in the community who are doing skill building for women. There's universities and colleges that are doing trades apprenticeships. There are government organizations that want to provide funding to get women into these education programs. And then what do we do about childcare? What do we do about, aging parents, mental health issues? So it's one thing to give a woman a job. It's another thing to help her with all that comes around her being employed.
Yeah.
So we're complicated people, and I think we look at it holistically in a very different way than somebody thinking, oh, a job's going to fix it.
Right.
A job will fix it. But if you have a kid that you got to get to childcare and you're a single parent, male or female, it's a barrier.
Right.
So we have to begin to think about the whole person.
Yeah. And the issues that come with it. I think that's such a great point. It's not just more women, right? It's shifting the masculine and feminine kind of working together and making sure the culture's right, and making sure that there are policies in place that can support a working mom and all these different things. Like, it becomes such a bigger issue quickly, right? It becomes a societal issue much quicker than just more women in the trades.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's a really, it's a hot topic. Like, nobody can say no to women in the trades. Of course. Absolutely. Great paying jobs, trades women, hands-on, like what you can make as a tradesperson versus working in a fast food restaurant or doing childcare, both also needed. But if we're talking about getting women high paying wages that they can live off of, this is a great way to do it. It's a great alternative.
Yeah.
And it's very much a culture shift. We talk a lot about disrupting the way things have been done and being unapologetically pro-women. And we're trying to figure out now, how do we make this all happen? So there's partners in the community who are doing skill building for women. There's universities and colleges that are doing trades apprenticeships. There are government organizations that want to provide funding to get women into these education programs. And then what do we do about childcare? What do we do about, aging parents, mental health issues? So it's one thing to give a woman a job. It's another thing to help her with all that comes around her being employed.
Yeah.
So we're complicated people, and I think we look at it holistically in a very different way than somebody thinking, oh, a job's going to fix it.
Right.
A job will fix it. But if you have a kid that you got to get to childcare and you're a single parent, male or female, it's a barrier.
Right.
So we have to begin to think about the whole person.
Yeah. And the issues that come with it. I think that's such a great point. It's not just more women, right? It's shifting the masculine and feminine kind of working together and making sure the culture's right and making sure that there are policies in place that can support a working mom and all these different things. Like, it becomes such a bigger issue quickly, right? It becomes a societal issue much quicker than just more women in the trades.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's a really, it's a hot topic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, nobody can say no to women in the trades. Of course. Absolutely. Great paying jobs, trades women, hands-on, like what you can make as a tradesperson versus working in a fast food restaurant or doing childcare, both also needed. But if we're talking about getting women high paying wages that they can live off of, this is a great way to do it. It's a great alternative.
Yeah.
And, forgot where I was going.
Well, I think we talk a lot about how it's also a pathway to entrepreneurship.
Exactly.
So, you can learn and you can be an apprentice and you can work for a company, and then you can go strike out on your own at a small community that might need you, or, go back to your hometown and bring this skill with you. It's really a diverse skill to have, is having a trade skill. And the thing that we've discovered is there's so many amazing programs around here. Right. There's 15-week programs with CAT, the big Caterpillar construction company. Yeah. 0 to 15 weeks, you can have one of these high-paying jobs. And they are focusing a lot on recruiting women. And people are always telling us about these amazing programs that can change your life in literally just a few months.
Right.
So that's really exciting.
So let's talk about the design district.
Sure. Softballing it up. Yeah. Well, you've been incubating out of this space for a few months as you're kind of growing this idea of how to support the women in trades. And I mean, the meetup has over 200 members. It's an active group. Yep. They're, like you said, they're always referring business to one another. They're hiring each other. I love this, when somebody's sick or hurt, they'll be like, hey, can you cover that job? I mean, they're literally handing work to each other.
Yes.
It's super, super collaborative, which we love to see. And then you saw a need to support these women as they're growing their businesses and not working 70, 80 hours a week, right? So you've been working out of here, and you have meetings and there's different things, and you're growing the business and working with your different business coaches and figuring out what the business model looks like. And I love that you wanted to do this here because we're in the design district.
Right.
And I always am still shocked when I say this, but there are over 65 businesses related to building and home and construction right here in the district. So it's kind of beautiful and perfect that, of course, women in trades should have a presence here and a voice here and be kind of a visible part of this community.
So the big vision, fantasy for the community area. There's some vacant buildings. We've talked a lot about this. It would be very cool to have one of those storefront buildings to be able to have the women in trades training space and the place where you could go to hire the women for your gorgeous home, where you just bought your furniture or just had it designed. Now you need people to hang those barn doors and hang those lighting fixtures. And you could use the women who are part of the hub and have this, ecosystem right here in the River Arts, not River Arts, Design District.
That's okay. Yeah, Asheville Design District. So yeah, we think about this true hub of the women coming and going and sharing resources. I think that's a big piece is,
yes,
maybe you're sharing a delivery truck, instead of everybody having their own trucks or whatever. I mean, we've talked about that, shared bookkeepers, shared whatever. And so the hub is just really it's humming, right?
Yeah, it's humming.
There's really a lot of, we can see it in our minds already of all these women. You see through the window, somebody's, blacksmithing and somebody's doing woodworking over here and all this energy and amazingness, we see it already. Yeah. We just got to figure out how to make it happen.
That's right. It's a pretty amazing, it's an amazing idea. I feel like it's in the works. It's percolating. I think once you release it into the universe, people bite on and they're like, oh, I want to be part of that piece. I want to be part of that piedpiece. And we want to get you involved. So join us.
And we've had some really great conversations with AB Tech, Western Piedmont, and there's great organizations doing some of this work, but they need help too. They need support, and they need people to kind of lead the charge with creating new programs, finding more funding. And that's something we've learned in this process is even as for-profits, you can partner with nonprofits, and they are so overtaxed and overworked that you can go after money if you have great ideas for programming and especially workforce, because that's a big piece of this is we see way too many young people. Maybe they didn't love college. Right. Maybe they don't know what to do. Maybe they're graduated during COVID and they still don't know what to do. And we just really believe in this longevity and security and just truly amazingness of the trades, because AI can't take your trade job.
Nope. You're always going to need somebody to put your cabinets on your walls. I think that's a big piece. Like there's sort of two different extremes in our employment, and we're losing this middle section of these artists who are retiring, these, small family companies that were plumbers or, HVAC companies, and then they retire and sell off their equipment, where we could have women being brought in, trained to hold these companies up.
Yeah. And there's a big stat about the boomers, retiring, and a lot of them don't have kids to pass it on to, or their kids don't want it. Right. And so then they think, well, I just have to close. Right. And there's some organizations in town, Making It Nashville is one of them, that's trying to pinpoint that stage, right? Where, wait, somebody wants to buy this. Somebody wants to step into this legacy business. And that's what I did with Harmony, right? I mean, it has been around for 22 years. And we stepped in 3 years ago and bought it. And because they were ready to retire and move on to their nonprofit.
Exactly. It's a great example.
So why not have that happening more and build on the reputation, build on the client list? So, I mean, there's definitely opportunities there too for, like that pipeline again, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we also have a heart for teenagers and middle school girls. I go all the way to babies. I'm like, okay, I know there's toys for baby girls that are related to the trades, but I feel like we could come up with some really cool stuff. Mm-hmm. But it's really that journey of when I was in middle school and high school, never thought women in trades. What does that mean? I mean, there wasn't something even on my radar as a possibility. Yeah. And I think that's probably true for a lot of kids right now.
It's true.
Yeah.
When my children were little, there was an organization in Chicago, Chicago Women in Trades, and they sold hot pink OSHA certified hard hats. And every classroom my kids were in, I bought one and put it in the dress-up closet, because I felt like it was a really good visual for young people to see. And, everybody likes hot pink, boy or girl. Now today, I don't think women have to wear the hot pink to be recognized as a powerhouse on the site. But it is changing, and I think Girl Scouts is doing a good job of putting women in front of.
They have the badge now, the trades badge.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if we can get into those classrooms and begin to start having that conversation in the pipeline when young people get to high school, I was not allowed to be in the shop class or the woodworking class in high school. It was only for the boys. And so they don't even exist anymore, let alone only for boys. But if we could bring that back in, I think culture is shifting. I think there was some shame around trades jobs, like, oh, they weren't smart enough to go to college. But I don't think that's the case anymore. And I think you touched on it a little bit also about we're in a world where hand skills are never going to go away, and we need to have qualified people know how to do that.
And there are jobs out there in the fields right now, for sure. And I think dirty jobs help that change that perception, right?
Yep.
I feel like it's like, wait, look at these great, high paying, awesome jobs where they're very entrepreneurial, right? I mean, you're setting your schedule, you're figuring out where to go, you're figuring out your route, you're figuring out, there's so many things that you kind of get to have some autonomy and somewhat of setting your schedule. And there's the flexibility piece, because we talk about like working moms, you got to go pick up your kids at 3:30.
Right.
Well, maybe trades is perfect for you actually, because maybe you can just schedule smaller jobs so you're done in time. And so we like that too, that it has a lot of opportunities and flexibilities for women as well, for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think you're building, with the entrepreneur side, you're building what works for you. So with the hub, we're working on having a remote team. So people can have a life and have a job, and working on paying people fair wages, both in the trades and on the admin side. I think it's a growing consciousness. We have to pay people fairly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, I always say hats off to you for building a community that, shows up, and they are always so excited, and you jump around to different locations every month to spread the love and show off other businesses. And it's just every time, great speakers, great energy, and everybody gets to go around and introduce themselves, which I always love for a networking event, because you feel like, well, I get my 30 seconds.
Yes.
And you're meeting everyone, at least they know. And then you see people right after the circle.
I want to talk to you.
And it's just, it's so powerful to see. And then a lot of those women also show up for Investor Asheville, which is really wonderful to see the synergy between people that are investing in properties and people that are landlords.
Yep.
They're hiring the women in trade. So last week at the conference, actually, when we met up as leaders, that was one of the pieces where we were saying, hey, investor ladies, find the women in trades in your community. Help them form.
That's awesome. Yep.
Right? Like help them form a meeting, or help them like hire women in trades, and have that kind of Venn diagram of overlap, because there's been a lot of beautiful overlap between the two groups. And
we probably need to have that conversation too.
Sure. But I just, the women coming together and the different facets of this. And we talk about ecosystem all the time and building that out. And you launched your second chapter in Morganton.
Yes.
And so share a little bit about that.
So there's a group of women out in Morganton who are in love with the trades, and they're beginning to do quarterly meetings that are a little bit more experiential and hands-on. So like a blacksmithing session is the next one that they're coming up with. They just did a slab, like the live edge wood slab event. It was all day with beautiful catered lunch, and we learned every step of those slabs. They're not just cut from a backyard and leaned against a tree and dried. There's years of process to get those beautiful pieces, and that was really fun to be able to see. So they're doing a little bit more hands-on
appreciation of the crafts.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
and bringing their community together in that kind of space. But it's amazing. And same thing, like it's an electric group. Happy, smart, talented people all around one table.
Yeah. Yes. And people, a lot of people show up right out from work with their, work pants and then their stagehand clothing on or whatever. And it's kind of come as you are. So next one is July 11th.
No, sorry. There's Wednesday, July 3rd is a rooftop cocktail social. No program. So if you want to have a cocktail, and we'll be at Revolution Hotel.
Nice.
And then the following week on the 11th here at the Hub, Mad Genius Studio space, we'll be doing a writing workshop.
Yeah. So I met with her last week. Kelly Gray will be sharing her Your Story program. And this is really great information for any woman business owner, because it's kind of owning your story and how can you get more press? What should you do on social media? All these kind of things that we have to all do. We just have to. And so owning it as like your story and how you're serving, I think is kind of how Kelly describes it. So I'm excited for that.
Me too.
That's going to be great. But yeah, I would say if you're even the slightest bit interested in the trades, come out July 3rd and meet and greet, because
just absolutely have a drink with us.
And it might be that you're changing careers, and we can help guide you to how to do that. And there's so many resources here. And so that's a big piece of the women in trades.
That's a really good point. Like, I don't want people to feel intimidated because they're not solidly in the trades. Like, there are people who they launched their child into grade school and they want to do something different with their days. There are people who have been in the trades forever and ever and have retired. There are people who are trying to get in. So, I mean, I think every one of us has a side hustle also. Mm-hmm. So they're all entrepreneurs. They're all creative problem solvers. So point being,
you'll be
come
welcome.
And check it out.
Yeah. Love it. Well, thank you so much, Julie, for being here today,
welcome.
and all the work you do and how you're trying to work so hard to uplift women and uplift women in the trades. And we got to change that 10% statistic. That's not okay. Let's get more women in trades for sure. All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next time on the Asheville Design District podcast.